Hey everybody, it's Jason from Frank's Homestead. And so I thought I would show everybody how I get prepared with my bow to go on an archery hunt. Obviously, it's really important, like I said, to practice as much as possible before you go hunting, because the last thing any hunter wants to do is wound an animal that may not be recoverable and then later die. So as a hunter, it is our responsibility to do our job, which is practice, to make sure that our mark is hit every time we draw back. Now, sometimes it does happen. There's unforeseen events or things that can come up. For example, you don't see a branch that's 30 feet in front of you because it's a small twig, and when you release that arrow, if that arrow hits that twig, then it can get deflected off in a different direction. It does happen, but the more you practice, the better you get at it, and the less likelihood that you're going to just wound an animal and you'll actually be able to harvest it. So let's get down to it. First of all, when I practice hunting, as you can see, I've got my backpack on, I've got my jacket on, I've got everything that I wear. I've got my gloves, I wear them with my release on top of it. I want to be wearing everything that I would take into the field to go hunting with, because it's more likely that as you're walking along, you may jump an elk or a deer, and you're going to have your backpack on. You're not going to be able to take it off. So I want to make sure that when I practice, everything I'm wearing is exactly what I would have on in the field. So as you can see, I am on a chunk of my property here, and right behind me here is my target. I rolled it down the hill and just left it in a spot. Didn't really matter where. And the idea is that this way is uphill, this way is downhill, and then this is a flat section as well. It's all treed, and so it's going to give me different vantage points to shoot from, and that way I can also hone in my yardage skills. I do not use a rangefinder, and I do it purely just off of shooting and practice to get my yardage down. So the other thing I do when I practice is I use the same arrow and broadheads that I use hunting in the field. Now, these are recovered tips from either a missed shot or a harvested animal, and what I do is I make sure I use them to practice with, because a field tip or broadhead does not fly the same as a practice tip. And so I want to make sure I'm shooting exactly what I would be doing in the field. Okay, so when I start practicing, I just go to a random spot anywhere around that target. I'm not walking off distances or anything else. I just go to a random spot. I'll have to figure out what my yardage is to the target. So when I load my arrow, I do it the same way. I try to minimize as much movement out of the bow, because it may be open timber where you encounter your animal. Minimizing the amount of movement is going to help you. So practice it while you're practicing. Now, the other thing I do is I practice. A lot of people, when they draw back, they'll go way up here and drop back. Well, I don't do that. What I do is I hold the bow straight up, just like if I was about ready to shoot an animal, and I practice my draw straight back. Which can be tough, and I go through all the steps just like I would be. For me, I have to open my hand, make sure that my bow is centered right in between my thumb and first finger. I line up my peeps, gauge my distance, and let it fly. And that's how I practice. Now, I'll do that in different areas. I'll go downhill and shoot up to the target. I'll go uphill and shoot down to the target, because your arrow is going to fly differently when it's going uphill and when it's going downhill. Now, here's another thing some people don't practice, and that is shooting from a kneeled position. You get in the field, you got just a little bit of cover to hide behind or in front of, and you've got an animal, an elk or a deer in front of you, and so you should practice doing it on one knee. And once again, practice just pulling it straight back, minimal movement. After you shoot your arrow, you want to stay in the same position until you make sure that that arrow has left your bow. because any slightest movement on your bow is going to make the trajectory of that arrow go a different way. Remember, when you're practicing, set yourself up some difficult situations that may actually come up in the field, such as getting behind a tree and kneeling at the same time and having to shoot around that tree. And remember, don't forget to shoot uphill to the target and downhill to the target. Remember to be a responsible hunter and practice as much as you can, so that way it not only gives hunters a better reputation, but not only that, your chances of harvesting your animal after releasing your arrow go way up high, because you're now confident that you can make the kill and not just wound that animal. So to all you hunters out there, or soon to be hunters, good luck in your hunt this year.